Welcome, everybody. It is build day. Today, we are building a Lumen Key 80. You can see Lumen Key right there on the case. This is a sponsored build. My first non-mode sponsored build, which is very cool. Gary from Lumen Key reached out to me a little bit back, asked if I'd be interested in reviewing a board. I said I would be interested. I like TKLs, so why don't we do the 80? And I do get to keep this board. Want to say that up at the top, in exchange for a long dedicated video, to quote Gary. So they sent it out to me. I've got it here to build, but this is sponsored. So just want to let you know that right up at the top. They do not get to see the video before release, of course, and there's no money changing hands, just the keyboard itself. The unit I have is the Barebone E-Retro White Win Key layout. This is an in-stock board. I'm looking at the product page now as I am recording on August 22nd, 2024, and a number of colors are out of stock, including the Retro E-White, but the build guide for this is dated 2023. I had not heard of this brand before. They reached out to me. The build guide being dated 2023 leads me to believe this has been out for a while, or they just wrote it quite ahead of time. So I would assume these colors would restock. It is listed as an in-stock keyboard. Lumen Key also has a 65, a 75, and a Hall effect board, which I believe is also 65%. You could also get this keyboard with a set of 9009 themed keycaps, or some WOB keycaps as well. It also comes in Win keyless for you degenerates out there who prefer that. Some features of this board before we unbox. It is a tri-mode board, which is actually what has me really intrigued about this board. It's my first tri-mode board, which means it can be wired, of course, wireless via Bluetooth, or 2.4 gigahertz wireless, which I feel like is more common in like gaming peripherals. They claim that the wired latency is 2 milliseconds, the 2.4 gigahertz is 6 milliseconds, and the Bluetooth latency is all the way up at 40 milliseconds. The Bluetooth polling rate is also only 125 hertz, and the wired and 2.4 gig are 1000 hertz. So if that sort of thing matters to you, you do have a litany of options on this board. It has a Windows and Mac layout switch, similar to the Keychron boards you would have seen in the early days of my channel, so that's cool to see too. It is hot swappable. Like I mentioned, it's a TKL, ISO or ANSI. It's got VIA support, and it's a full aluminum body with copper weight and copper badge. So really quite a quality feature-filled package for $215. The tri-mode is what got me really excited about taking a look at one of these. Since I hadn't heard of the brand before, I did some research. You can buy direct from their site. They've got an AliExpress storefront as well. There's also a special edition of the Lumen Key 80 called the Glacier Edition. It's a $300 board. It's an ice blue finish, Win Key only, and comes with their Glacier keycaps and SOTC switches. So quite a few options, actually. I'm really keen to get this open and start working with it. Just quick scrolling the page here, making sure there's nothing else I wanted to call out. Oh, it's gasket mount and comes with a PC plate by default. You can get an aluminum or FR4 plate if you would like. Oh, interesting. It says it comes with switches. Maybe that's the built version. I don't think mine has switches with it. But they've got a Gateron branded switch called the Sylva, SYLVA, nylon housing, palm stem, long spring, 3.7 millimeter travel linear. So that is an option if with the pre-built version. PCB is 1.6 millimeters. Oh, and the keycaps are double shot if you get the keycap version. There you go. What does that add to the price? That's about $50 to the price for a set of keycaps. Again, 9009 or WOB themed. Both are available. So, looking at this now, I think I just realized it is 7U bottom row only. That's okay. The keycaps I picked have 1.5U supers, so we're all good there. It also comes with an artisan keycap, which is pretty cool, I think, as well. Always nice to see those included. I feel like the Mr. Suit boards, whatever happened to them? Do they still make boards? Anyway, I feel like they kind of kicked off the trend of including a artisan with it. I feel like you don't see that terribly often. There's a whole big blow-up diagram on the site. There's a number of foam layers included. We'll see which one of those I actually use. It looks like there's a battery in here, which is interesting because there wasn't a battery label on the outside of the box. So we'll see if that's true. As I mentioned, user manual available as well. Oh, written pretty late last year, August 30th, so maybe this hasn't been out for terribly long. Let's dig in. So we got a little mesh pocket up top here. Envelope, we'll come back to that. We've got a small set of switch pads. I'm guessing for the gamers out there, you can put them under your movement keys or what have you. Oh, we get a cable, a coiled cable, in fact, in the box. Let's see what the stitch is here. Ooh, it smells very fresh. Ferrite bead, no midstream connector, but the coil, a little bent from the bag, but the coil sits pretty nicely. There, USB-A on one end, USB-C on the other, fairly long, straight section. Lovely little bonus to see there. We have got, oh, there's our 2.4 gigahertz dongle, and looks like maybe some extra plate socks for the gasket mount. USB-A only for the dongle. Do you notice not a USB-C dongle? I feel like we're only just starting to see those on some Logitech products. There is stuff in here I cannot see. The bag is too opaque. Let's see what we got. I think it's a screwdriver. Yes, we've got a little Phillips screwdriver. Oh, branded, even. We'll see if that's for stabs or if there's something else in here that needs it. And a very round feeling hex key. Those edges feel very soft to me. It is definitely hex shaped though. So there's that. We'll leave those out. Take a look at sort of the whole package. In here, oh, it comes with a set of stabilizers. Actually, there's a packing list on the site. Do they call out what brand these are? Just says a set of stabilizers. Let's see if I recognize them. I do not recognize these molds. They look fairly typical of like a Duroc stabilizer to me. They do have O-rings on them, which is interesting. And they're screw-in. But I don't recognize, is that an icon on the bottom? If that is an icon, it's too small for me to recognize. So nice. So included stabilizers as well. Save you 20 bucks there if this is one of your first keyboards. At $215 prices. Getting better as we go. You get a cable and stabs. That's the Artisan. We'll come back to that. Looks like extra screws because the board's assembled in the case. So we'll just leave those handy. We may not need them. And then we have just one of those generic switch and keycap pullers. Switch puller here, keycap puller over here. Not going to bother opening that. And the Artisan. So it looks like it matches the keyboard. So you get a little teaser of the color here. It's metal with enamel-filled triangles. That triangle motif is in a couple other places on the board. We'll see in a moment. Nice little aluminum Artisan. Also a nice thing to include, because I think this is an F13 TKL. It is, yeah, so you've two reasonable spots an Artisan could go. We're going to be using GMK Yamone keycaps, Yamone, whatever, keycaps today. So we've got the Hibby for that. I feel like the retro white with the copper accents, that'll be a cool look. So that is everything up top. I'm going to put the cable, the switch and keycap puller, and the stab pads, and the stabs back. Let's see what's in the envelope. Lumen key. I do like this kind of motif. Oh, okay, something fell out. We'll come back to that. Oh, wow, this actually claims to be FCC compliant. Isn't that cool? Lumen key, made in China. Looks like links to their Discord. QQ, I think, is a chat app in China. And another mystery QR code, which I'm not going to scan for obvious reasons. Customer service email there. Looks like a little inspection number. Is that actually written on there? Wow, yeah, that actually is written in pen. Okay, cool. Yep, an FCC certification on the inside. Oh, this is about switching layouts, it looks like. Oh, where the power switch is for wireless under the shift key. The Bluetooth key bindings for switching devices, switching into 2.4 or USB mode. And escape is for RGB. Oh, controlling the RGB and for the VIA setup, I suppose. Oh, helps I read the English section, dummy. This looked like one continuous. Anyway. Yep, power switch under the keycap. Via RGB customization, they've got bound to escape. I wonder if it's layer plus escape? Yeah, right control. Switch to Mac layout, right control and tilde to switch your layout. Oh, so it's not a physical switch like on the Keychron. It's actually a firmware binding they have. I'll be interested to open it in Via and see how they chose to implement that. 1, 2, and 3 are your Bluetooth modes. 4 is your 2.4. That's a nice way to remember that. And 5 is wired mode. 5 will light up. Oh, are there RGB under those keys? That's kind of cool. Switch wireless device. Yep. Changing through your 1, 2, 3s. And then holding control and escape will reset the PCB. Cool. All right. Oh, and then what fell out here? Let's see. Further assertion of conforming to Part 15 of the FCC rules. Okay, cool. It is a wireless board, so you would want to see that. You don't with a lot of kit boards. I think they get around that by claiming they're a kit, whereas this can be sold as like a pre-built complete product. So maybe that's why they have chosen to include that. Cool. All right. And the board itself, still in its plastic here. We'll get the case out of the way here. Oh, and I forgot to mention, beverage of the video, a Baja Blast from Taco Bell with a paper straw. What a nightmare. All right. GB units, please. PLZ, please. Check the board surface before opening the plastic seal. Once the plastic coating is broken, we regard that you accept your received unit as flawless and will not provide you free after-sale service for the board's case. Thank you for understanding. I did give this a look over already. I'm pretty happy with the quality. It's hard to tell through the plastic, which makes those kind of rules somewhat annoying, but at least through the plastic, things seem fine. Oh, there is PE foam. I wonder why you just get like 9 pads of PE foam. Interesting. Maybe if you don't want the whole board to be PE. Hard to say. So on the front here, you can see the first of that triangle motif on the little copper badge. There are silver and black ones available. If I keep this board, I'll probably get one of those. I don't particularly love copper as an exterior color on keyboards, or rather I've yet to see a board that has changed my mind on that. And then on the corners of the weight, there's a fairly subtle triangle as well. So that's kind of the design motif of this board. Let's see if this looks like one of those stickers that shreds when you, yep. So, yeah, shreds and shows void underneath. So they're taking that check the finish first thing pretty seriously. Or serious enough to buy a set of those stickers. Cool. Hopefully the last crinkly bag of the video. Oh, let me here, as long as I'm throwing stuff away. Let me get some of these baggies out of here. All right. So indeed a PC plate. A barcode of some variety. The power switch is way down in there by right shift. Way down in there. F13, 7U layout. Oh no, I prepared 6U, 6.25U stabs. Okay, this video just got a little bit longer. That is okay. Cool. Well, let's actually address my stabilizer whoopsie first. We've got TXAP long pole clip-ins for this particular board. Let me grab my graveyard of TX stab parts, including just a buttload of 7U wires. I've never prepared stabs on camera before. We're doing something new together today. Although I'm not really preparing them. I just need to leave up a wire real quick. Fortunately, it's the space bar. Because this is messy. XHT BDZ lubricant likes to get absolutely everywhere. I'm also going to pull out one more tool here. This is the Geon Tweak board. It is simply a very flat machined piece of metal for balancing and checking stabilizer wires on. What I'm doing, from the top it looks like I'm just showing you the wire. What I'm doing is looking between the wire and the top surface of the tweak board to see if there is an air gap indicating which way the wire is warped. Almost all stabilizer wires are warped. They'll just warp in one way or another, and you want the bend to be away from the PCB, so as the stabilizer moves, it's not ticking against the PCB. And it looks like that's going to be the top side. Oh, how are the ends? So now I'm looking under the end of the wire. Actually, I don't like that wire so much. Let me grab... I've got a number of 7U wires, so we're just going to keep dipping into the collection until I find one I like. I build all my boards 6.25U, so I just have a collection on collection of these 7U wires left over, which today has turned out not to be a bad thing. Alright, that one's more... Ugh, actually, that one's not great either. Yeah, that one's bent in 2 directions. I could fix that. I don't want to, so I'm hoping one of these 4 7U wires is as good as my experience with TXAP wires has been. This one's looking quite good. Yep, definitely worked the other way. Cool. And the ends of that are pretty darn good too. Okay, we will use that one. I'm actually just I'm gonna toss this really wavy one. This one I think I can fix. Once it's like twisted in 2 different directions, it's kind of screwed. It is fixable, but given how infrequently I build 7U boards and how many extra 7U wires I have, I'm not too worried about it. The tool you would use to fix a torqued wire, by the way, whoops, wrong drawer. The tool you would use to fix a torqued wire are Geon twisters. I glued these together just because I use them as a pair. They have holes and slots in the end that you insert a stab wire into, so then you can twist and tweak the wire into shape. I'm very extra about stabs. I'm extra about everything. I have a whole YouTube channel about keyboards. Well, that being said, I am recording this hot on the heels of my release of my short film I made with my friend Mike in celebration of his and Stephen Hackett's company turning 10 years old, Relay. That video has been very well received and is the first short film I've made since high school at least. Actually, yeah, the last, and I say it that way because I'm not even sure in the last year of high school I made a short film. I think it was just earlier in high school. And those ones I certainly did not make alone. This one I more or less did in terms of like shooting and editing. I definitely had help writing and lots of feedback on the process. So what I do is I get my brush XHT BDZ'd up. I paint on a fairly light amount to begin with. Just make sure I get the whole end of the wire and just a little bit around the bend coated. The camera's not gonna like that, is it? There you go. And then on the top and bottom of the wire, I put on just a little bit more, because those are the surfaces that are most likely to want to make a hard impact with the stab housing, and we're not going to let them. Not today. There you go. There's one side. Oh, and I drew a little Sharpie on the top of the wire. You can actually, all of these have a line on the top of the wire. If you see one of my stabilizers and it doesn't have a Sharpie line on it, that means it was good in both orientations. Sharpie, go up. So just making sure I get all of the surfaces. And I use Krytox 205 on the housings. I only use XHT BDZ on the wires. It'd be way too thick for the housings. It's almost too thick for stabilizers. Stabilizers, when I prepare them this way, do have a short break-in period. I find it to be about a week or 2 of use, and not like all day use either, but like a couple hours a day for about a week. So if you're someone who works from home and types on the same keyboard all day, they may break in really just a day or 2 if my quick maths are right. Cool. And this is the part where I get XHT all over my fingers. Clip in one side, get XHT on my finger. Clip in the other side. No XHT on my finger. That's a miracle. All right, there we go. Problem solved. Oh, now I'm gonna wipe off my brush on the inside of the jar, just to retain as much BDZ actually in the jar as possible. And I'll put that next to my sink so I remember to wash it. Once you start using a brush for lube, just commit to only using it for lube, but I still wash them afterwards. I feel like it would get gross. I don't know for sure. Oh, and my brush rest is my original switch opener from when I joined this hobby from Keyboss, Kiiboss. This was like a staple in in 2020, I suppose. So funny. There's a lot of history in this drawer. I should do a workbench tour or something at some point. Anyway. I should finish editing my backlog of videos, is what I should do. So, there you go. Board. Stabilizers. TXAP long pole clip-ins. Switches. We're going to be using Gateron Smoothie linears. Super into these. They're all palm, so kind of like creams in that regard. But like the lube job and the spring in these are awesome. Super good switch from Gateron. Sounds awesome. And then, as I mentioned, keycaps, we'll be using GMK Yamone 2. It is Yamone themed. So there you go. So that'll be the plan. Let's tear this board down. This is the part I'm really intrigued by. Is there a battery in here? What does the PCB look like with all those wireless components? So many questions we get to answer today. But I also will be mindful as I'm building this of the build process for how that might feel for newer people. Because this is, in my opinion, price-wise, positioned as an entry-level board. Oh, I was going to use the tools they gave me to test those out too. So just grabbing my own tools. Cool. So hex key on the bottom. Looks like we got pretty typical 8 screws to deal with. I'm going to assume those ones in the baggie are all extras, so I'm actually going to set them aside for the moment. Are you going to come out? Okay, we're going to dump all the screws out at once. Design-wise, I don't love how the screws being so close to the edge were handled. I don't like when they do the full cutout like that, where it's like instead of just a circular, it's like a circle with, it's like a tombstone shape. I get why they do that. It's almost certainly got to be cheaper to design that way, but I prefer when it's just a circle. Oh, the feet are already attached. Didn't even notice that. That is not common on what I would call like enthusiast grade boards. That the feet are pre-attached, so that's nice for someone coming into this dry. And it makes sense actually, I guess, because they're selling these pre-assembled. I'm sure they just have like a big pile of chassis ready to go before they decide whether or not to load them up with switches and such first. Why am I still trying to pull up the screws? I already committed to dumping them. I do like the finish on the copper weight. It's like, it almost has like a film grain to it. Not like a plastic film, but like film photography grain on it. That's cool. I think it looks good with the retro E-white. This is actually a color of board I have been wanting to try for some time, so I was excited to see it was one of the options. And even though I said earlier I don't love copper on the exterior boards, I think this is a pretty sweet pairing. Oh, side profile. So it's almost box on wedge, but it's like box on wedge on wedge. Kind of a geometric side profile. I dig that. I prefer typically more geometric looks over like swoopy looks. The worst offender of that is calligraphy on the bottom of boards. Stop it, Gian. Get help. Okay. Unscrew the screws on the bottom. I'm following the build guide as I should if I'm trying to view this from a new person's point of view. Flip it over and pick it up. That is a very light piece of aluminum. Oh yeah, this is very thin-walled. I'll be interested to see if the sides of this ring on similarly constructed boards. I have had that before, but since there are all these silicone gasket socks, that may kill any resonance. So we'll have to see. But yeah, pretty typical on the inside here. Screw holes were nicely covered during coating, so I don't see a whole bunch of like overflow paint into them. Oh, the badge is Phillips. That might be why they include a Phillips, not for the stabilizer. Oh, well, no, the stabilizers just screw into. I guess it works for both. That's kind of the nice thing about Phillips, even though there are properly sized Phillips for each job, but you know, yeah, just that little bit of copper badge there. No gripes really on like the quality of the part. My only complaint is that they didn't match the inner radius to the outer radius. The inner radius is larger than the outer radius, so you get kind of a bloop of material there. It's completely on the underside and you won't see it, but that is something you see on higher end boards, is the radius matching. Certainly it will not affect the way typing feels though, so not too worried about it. Oh, and the plate and PCB are held together with Phillips, so that's probably another reason it's in there. This certainly looks like the wrong size of Phillips. Yeah, the Phillips is a little small, but for the tensions we're dealing with here, we'll be fine. No idea what that barcode means. Hopefully you can't steal my information with that. Oh yeah, and there are LEDs under like the programming keys, if you will. Caps and scroll lock as well. Escape was RGB. That was layout, I think. And then 3 Bluetooth channels, 2.4, and wired. Yep. Yep. Cool. And then it is instructing me to lift up and disconnect the ribbon cable. There's the ribbon cable. All right, so we've got a, pretty typical ribbon cable with ZIF connectors on each end. How's it going to instruct me? Lift up the liner and carefully remove the cable. I would have liked to see them describe how to remove the cable. With these ZIF connectors, there's this gray latch. Here you need to lift that, and then it just pops out. ZIF, Z-I-F, is zero insertion force. These are great connectors. You just need to know how to use them. So I would have liked to see that, but not a major ding. And then that goes down to a daughter board. Okay, cool. Well, now that we've got our first layer kind of exposed here, let's see. We've got case foam. This is very open cell. That's weird. It's almost kind of like felt. Like, no force to crush that at all. I just like lightly touch my fingers together. Which, for dampening sound, you want a fairly open foam to like catch the waves as they go by. If you use like a really dense foam or a rubber, it sounds kind of dead, which is a sound profile some people prefer, though it is not for me. So we got that. We do have a bottom layer here. Okay, oh, the weight silver on the inside. Isn't that interesting? The plot thickens. I wonder what they're calling this in the blow-up diagram. Let's see here. Oh, just 1 millimeter pour-on is all they call it. Oh, and the case foam isn't actually even in the diagram. Only this is, so that must have been a later addition. Anyway, cool. I assume this is here to stop shorts from happening. This can help with case ringing, so maybe that's why it's there, but typically these foam sheets that cover the whole bottom are there so when you type really hard, you don't get metal on metal contact inside the case. It will do both. I don't know why they chose to put it there. Oh, and it's like closed-celled on this side and open-celled on this side, so maybe flipping that might do something too acoustically. It'll probably be pretty subtle if it does. We'll come back to this. I'm going to leave that there for the moment. I am curious to see what's under here now. So let's grab the Phillips they included, see if it's up to the task. Nice. These screws were tight, but not like the Hulk tightened them. Sometimes you get these products and the screws are way too tight. Oh, how heavy is this by itself? Okay, that's pretty hefty still. That top case was very light. This still has a good bit of mass to it. Anyway, yeah, sometimes you get boards or any product, really, and the screws were tightened by, like, the Hulk themselves. So, this is nice that they're tight, but I don't need a torque wrench to get them off. Oh, this is very thin. Oh my god, there's 2 batteries! Did this have a battery warning on the outside of the box? I already got rid of the box. I don't think this had a battery warning on the outside. I wonder if it's because they're enclosed enough? Interesting. Okay, yeah, so this is just like a very thin vanity plate. This is not a weight. It honestly probably only looks like this because coating it would cost $1, and why would they do that? So there you go. We have 2 2200 milliamp hour batteries. Man, the battery life on this thing probably is like pretty cracked, I would bet. I assume this one's also 2200. Yep, 2200 milliamp hours at 3.7 volts for 8.14 watt hours. Manufactured May of this year. Cool. Pretty typical OEM battery you see in a lot of Chinese products. Nothing to write home about. There does appear to be a single impact point on one of mine. Doesn't look like it broke the casing, so not worried about it. Yeah, fairly typical batteries. And then I'm betting these Phillips head screws release the copper weight. I'm not going to bother with that. But there you go. And interesting, they feed into the daughter board, which I think is a clever way to do that. A lot of these wireless boards, when you like pull the PCB out, I have very few wireless boards, so I'm not speaking from experience, but you'll have like a data connector and a power connector. This is clever, I think, to put 2 of them and have them feed into the daughter board. The daughter board itself is labeled LK 80, Lumen Key 80, dash QMK V01. Mine was manufactured August 4th, 2023. Are they still selling GB units? I guess that would make sense because mine had a GB warning sticker on it. The manual came out August 2023. There you go. 2 Phillips head screws holding it down. Looks like just a couple power management components. Really the most interesting part is the fact that the batteries connect to it. Cool. Same deal here. All the screw holes looked like they were well masked off during painting. Slight nick on the coating on mine. That could have been from me disassembling it though. Yeah. Nothing to write home about. All's well here. Now is this symmetrical? That'd be kind of cool if it is. Oh my god, I think this is symmetrical. So one's the hole for the cable, one is where this little LK badge shows through. Slick, love it. No notes. Actually, you know what? No, I don't care what the backside of the copper weight looks like. I don't want to disconnect the batteries and all that for what will almost certainly be not horribly interesting. These are countersunk screws, which is nice. The cone nature of countersunk screws does help align parts during assembly a little bit. So you'll not have to worry about this plate being like really jogged to one side or the other. I'm not putting a whole bunch of tension on these. Just like finger tight with this driver. The driver so far has been well sized for all the Phillips heads I've encountered. It looks like the ones on the plate are the same size as this, so I expect that to continue. I do think if they went up one Phillips size, it might engage a little bit better with the screw, but not going to be too picky about that. Cool. Let's throw the 1mm Poron back in. Oops, there we go. Get it nice and aligned properly. And we will put back the what I would call case foam for now as well. Throw our top case back on top, and we'll set this aside for the moment. Okay, let's get this out of the way since we're going to be dealing with the PCB next. Don't want a static shock anything, that would be problematic. And we are going to also fully disassemble this, both for sake of posterity in the review, and because I'm not sure I want PE foam in there. I kind of want to run this thing pretty raw as I run most of my boards. I know that a novice user would probably just open this, snap in their switches, and call it a day. But I am not a novice user. Okay, so pretty typical PC plate, silicone socks, as I guess that's what those extras are in the baggie. Without it on there, you just have a little spring, silicone sock on. There you go. Tried and true mounting method. No mounting point during the space bar. Not my personal favorite thing. We'll see how it goes in this board though. And there you have it. Cool. Next layer down is plate foam. We definitely won't be using this. I do not like plate foam. The stock configuration of this board, I believe, would lead it to sound very foamy. Oh, interesting. Oh, okay, we're going to come back to that. That's interesting. The default configuration of this board leads me to believe it would sound quite foamy out of the box, which is not my preferred sound. Seems like good enough quality foam. Again, interestingly, closed cell on the top, open cell on the back. I'm wondering now if this isn't actually closed cell. It's just got like an aesthetic side, because it doesn't look like... Actually, it might be a different layer of material. Interesting. Shiny side, not shiny side. Not sure this is actually closed on top. Might just be for looks. Cool. Definitely not using that. Not a plate foam guy. Cool that it's included, though. I'm glad you don't have to purchase it separately. And then PE foam. This... Maybe this will be the sound test, actually. I always find this an interesting comparison. Some boards I love PE foam, and some I feel like it's way too much. Way too much. So maybe that'll be the sound test. I'm going to start without, just hear the board raw, and we will... I'm pre-committing to that being the sound test. We shall see. The thing that made me exclaim a little bit, this is really interesting to me. These brass standoffs you see here, one of them came off I thought that was a little strange. These are heated inserts for threads. This is like what you put into a 3D printed part or an injection molded part to add metal threads to a plastic part. And they're using them as standoffs, which I think is really interesting. These are a very cheap part. It's kind of weird they didn't just use normal standoffs, but cool. they're totally gonna do the job. I saw it fall off and was kind of rolling on the PCB, and I was like, oh, what's that? And it's a threaded insert. What a novel use of them. I've never seen one used in that way before. Am I blind? There we go. Totally lost track of the hole that this goes in. Two of the other ones were a little bit loose as well. I don't know if that was from me loosening or if they jiggled in travel, but just so you know, you may want to tighten yours if you choose to get this board. I can finger tighten them because they're knurled on the outside. Top side, not a lot to write home about. The power switch, of course, the LEDs we previously mentioned, stabilizer tape pre-installed. I'm also going to remove that. This makes stabs sound mushy, in my opinion. I think, given the option, I would prefer to see them pre-installed so a newbie user would not have to do it themselves, making the product more accessible. But a seasoned, I don't like using the word veteran, that feels very loaded, but a seasoned keyboard user could easily remove them as well. This was called Band-Aid mod back in the day. But the bottom, I think this is going to be interesting, because what I noticed from the top is that is an antenna trace right there, that squiggle. So I'm betting, yep, that's where a lot of the brain on this thing is. Let me make use of the technology here. So all the wireless bits are down there under the space bar. Most boards do that because the space bar is a big plastic area that radio signals can escape from in these metal keyboards. It's a Lumen Key LK80V 1.2. Same deal here, LK80-QMK. Manufactured in September, a whole month after the daughter board. And version 2, not version 1, like my daughter board is. Here's our microcontroller. Over here we have a completely unbranded microcontroller. Interesting. The diodes are all dual channel diodes, so half as many diodes as you would normally need on a board. I know my Jabberwocky for sure uses those as well. I'm actually kind of surprised you don't see them more often. I guess maybe because if you damage one, you take out two keys. But if you damage one, you need to replace it anyway. Yeah, I wonder why you don't see those more often, now that I think about it. And then up top here, this is where our daughter board flex connects, so it looks like there's some power management going on up here. We got a bunch of sideways switch positions. Oh, that's how they did caps lock. Interesting. Oh, to be able to have an LED there. Because if one was up and down, it would crash to where the LED goes. Oh, and actually you do need to remove these if you're going to do ISO. Some of the hot swap sockets are hidden. Both return positions are sideways. Backslash is sideways. Okay, some fancy maneuvering here to get both ANSI and ISO. Nothing wrong with that. Kind of interesting, it doesn't support 6.25U. I'm not seeing anything that would block that. I guess it would, the plate design would be more complex. Certainly attainable. But it's not like this electronics bay, if you will, is too wide to allow for both switch positions to exist. So, a style choice. Not one I love. I'm a 6.25U guy. But 7U is certainly a popular layout, so nothing wrong with that. And I do have some 7U boards. 6.25 is just my personal preference. Pretty standard PCB. All said. Nothing special. It doesn't look shoddy in any way. Nice black mask. Yeah, great. I'm with it. Let me grab some tweezies to pull off the stab tape. Interesting that this is pre-installed. Definitely a lot of boards include it. I've just never seen it pre-installed before. I wonder if they mentioned that you need to tear it off to switch to ISO in the build guide. Let's see here. Oh, they do in the build guide say to test the PCB, which we will be doing. I love to see that. Big points for confirming the PCB works. Yep. Okay, actually build guide's pretty mundane on detail. Enough, but, you know. Oh, interesting. It's telling me that this can't be a 5-pin switch. They have a separate build guide for transitioning from ANSI to ISO. I was seeing if it mentions you need to remove the tape. What it's actually telling me is some of the switches need to have a leg cut off in order to be installed. If it's a 5-pin switch, if it's a 3-pin switch, you're good to go. Interesting. Oh, and then the extra stab pad stickers are for the ISO layout. Yep, it's extra clever. It's extra switch pads to go into those positions if you're using the ISO layout. Cool. All right, I dig that. Good attention to detail. Nothing about removing the stab pads. I assume, or it seems rather, they assume you will figure that out. And that's okay. I think if you're knowledgeable enough to be transitioning a board from ANSI to ISO, you are probably knowledgeable enough to know that you need to remove stab pads. They look thicker in the middle. I keep forgetting to look at them because I'm distracted and saying other things when I'm pulling them off. Ooh, I think I scratched the solder mask just then. No, I didn't. Never mind. Oh, that's pretty tough, actually. I feel like I gouged that pretty hard. Are these thicker in the middle? No, I think it's just an illusion that they look thicker in the middle. Maybe it's because the way they're applied. It could just be like a wrinkle from the application. See, if I keep talking through this, I can't time-lapse it in the edit. It's interesting. These are almost made of, like, gaff tape material. Actually, they almost kind of look like Band-Aid material now that I think about it. I suppose there's black Band-Aids, probably. Right, here we go. Easy peasy. Okay, so not gonna install PE foam right now. Not doing plate foam. Plate will go back on top after I test the PCB. All right, oh, put the case away too fast. Yoink. Alrighty. Huge brownie points for instructing people to test their PCBs. I would have liked to see a paper build guide in the box, given how short it is. The actual build guide's just like it's one layer of navigation too deep on their website, and if this is being aimed at newer people to the hobby, I think it should be pretty in your face to find the build guide. But it does say to test the PCB, so all is forgiven. Success. All right. Always, 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 always test your PCB. Have I ever had one fail? Like 2, maybe, out of all the boards I've built. But it will save you a lot of time, and especially if you're buying like a consumer product like this, and you build it completely, and then something doesn't work, they may not service it because it's like possibly your fault at that point. So always check. Takes 30 seconds. Maybe a minute, depending how many times you need to open VIA. Okie dokie. So we're not doing PE foam right off the bat, at least. That's so funny. These are heat set inserts. That's very probably only specifically funny to someone like me. Yes, we're not doing any foam. I will leave that bottom layer of pour-on foam in, but otherwise we're gonna run this thing basically raw. So if stabilizers, hang on, that would have been annoying. So installing stabilizers, not installing switches. We'll start there. These are clip-in stabilizers. You can see on the PCB there's a big hole and a small hole for the stabs. The claw end of the stabilizer, which will be there whether it's screw in or clip in, goes into the big hole, and the attachment side, clips in this case, sometimes the screw goes into the small hole. You kind of swoop it in so the claw can grab the underside of the plate, or PCB rather. And then, oh god, I haven't done clip-ins in a while. I much prefer screw-ins, but I have some clip-ins to use up, and these were long pull ones that I had on hand. Oh boy. So what I'm doing here is I'm pinching the claws together with the tweezers just to help them clip in. There we go. There we go. Cool. Left shift, pointing down. As I had this flipped over, testing it, I think the reason they instruct you to clip the leg for some layouts on your switches is so they don't crash into each other's hot swap sockets, which is actually a pretty clever way of getting around that. If I'm correct, that's why they're having you do it. I think that is. I think it's like the Icky 68 Aurora PCB is like the most generous hot swap PCB I've ever seen. They were putting sockets from Boston all of a sudden, sockets in some very, very odd orientations on that board, but it worked, so go them. All right, and before I stick the shims in, we are going to test the stabilizers. I use silent switches to do so. You certainly do not need to. Again, seasoned at this. And I have picked up lots of tips and tricks along the way, / made up lots of tips and tricks along the way, and using silent switches to test my stabs has proved good. And my workbench keyboard is not 7U, so I'll need to crack into the actual keycaps we're going to use for the build to test these, which is A-okay. Actually, might be replacing my workshop keyboard soon. My LCK75 here has been an absolute fixture of the channel and workshop for a long time, but Canon Keys just released the Satisfaction 75X, and I ordered one. I got the LCK75 after losing on the last sale raffle of the Sat 75. I called it the Dissatisfaction 75 for a while. I think my friend Mike came up with that. And so I'm excited to have a Sat 75 and like a cheap, interesting one. I think it's a worthy successor for the workshop keyboard. All right, that's GMK Yamone. It's ham themed. And we need a shift. Another shift. We may not use the white accents. That might clash with the retro white. We will need to see, but for testing, that is fine. Backspace. And a 7U spacebar. There we go. Okay. Of course, my fridge turned on right before I did this. The impacts you do hear are the stab hitting the PCB. I'm listening for, like, ticking, which I'm not hearing. I don't know why I'm surprised when I don't hear ticking. I've been doing this for a long time. No ticking, though. You love to not hear it. Also, stabs have just gotten so much better. Preparing Duroc stabs there were like so many mods and so much lore around what to do, and there's that time that Rama was doing like heat shrinked ones, which was like kind of early, not Tempest mod, but Holy mod kind of, I guess. Oh my god, Holy mod, I haven't said those two words together in a long time. Yeah, what a wild time that was. Now you just buy a set of TXAPs and lube them properly and you're done. Takes a nothing. I am still very excited about Norbauer's, though. If Norbauer does adapt his stabs to MX, I will be buying as many pairs as I can reasonably afford. They're not going to be cheap. There's a couple boards for sure I'd want to put them in, just as like trophy boards that I want to be as perfect as possible. One of my stabs unclipped here. Pop my switch, or pop my cap off. That is what the shims are for. So stabs are installed and tested. PCB is tested. Let's shim up these stabs. The way TX clip-ins work is there's like a 2-part clip. On the bottom, you can see the 2 little teeth right by the tip of my finger there. You shove these plastic shims between the teeth and that locks them in. So like exactly what just happened on my spacebar doesn't happen once you've built the board. That being when you like pull a particularly tight keycap off or something, it takes the stab housing with it. You don't want that. Because once the board's assembled, that is, well, it can be much harder to fix. I actually did have a TX AP, or a TX non-AP, a TX clip-in rather, pop once, and with the back end of my tweezers, I was able to clip it back in without disassembling, but that is certainly not a guarantee. So these clip spreaders, shims, handle that problem for you. And actually do make these stabs reusable. I have reused a set of stabs like once or twice before. One was a set of clip-ins, and it clipped in real loose to the second board, but with the shims they did stay, so credit there. They are as reusable. They are reusable. They're not, I was about to say they're as reusable as screw-in ones. That's probably not true. Screws are basically infinitely reusable in low load conditions like this. Well, actually, TX did just release a new set of clip-ins that clip in from the top. They've got like this like handle you push down that spreads the clips apart, which I think is a very interesting innovation. Stops you from needing to do the whole flip step. What I would like is somehow for them to engineer a screw-in stab that doesn't fall out when you flip your PCB over to screw it in. That'd be magic. I'd buy those for sure. And I have basically switched to screw-ins at this point, but like I said, I had some clip-ins to use up, and these were long pull stabs that I had in stock here at home. I was running much lower on stabs than I realized, so I was thankful to have these, as I am mostly a long pull switch user these days. I rebuilt my Mode 80 last night, and I used a full travel switch in that. It's amazing that like a 10% travel difference is noticeable, but it is. That keyboard feels deeper, for lack of a better word. Okay, what I was winding up to say before. The way I install switches is as such. First, plate forks. These are your best friends. These are 3D printed ones. They came with something else. They hold the plate and PCB the right distance apart to clip switches in. With stiff plates, it doesn't really matter. This is a very floppy plate, so if I try to clip a switch in the middle, it's just going to make the plate bow in the middle, which isn't helpful. So switch forks. The switch forks will run into these little socks for the gaskets, so I'm going to temporarily remove those. Almost got all in one hand. Actually, no, I didn't. I was only like halfway done. The other day I said to one of my friends, oh, it's almost my birthday. My birthday's in February. It's August. It's not almost my birthday. I don't know what's wrong with me. Ta-da. Socks. Put them in the name square. And switches. So the way I do this to ensure the best plate alignment possible, that seems like 80 switches. We'll see how close I was to right. Is I take one and I clip it into the escape key. And I take a second switch and I install it in the furthest away 1U spot. And the reason I say it that way is because with like a 60% plate where you have multiple bottom row options, this square is probably more like a slot and it doesn't really help with the alignment. In this case, they're all 1Us, so no big deal. But just get 2 switches into 1U holes as far apart as possible. Insert those into their sockets. Wow, these seat firmly into this PCB. Those are going to be fun to swap out one day. Oh, I'm doing PE foam is the sound test, so soon. And so what putting in these first 2 switches does is locks the plate positionally and rotationally. So now this plate is like in agreement with the PCB, that's where it wants to be. And then I put in the screws. I did say earlier, countersunk screws kind of self-align in some ways. With a part this big and this soft, you don't really want to count on that. So putting in those 2 very distant switches will ensure alignment of the plate. Man, that's another thing from back in the day in the hobby. There used to be like this whole thought around like what order should you install your switches in, and I was a big believer in like doing it randomly. I think probably where that came from is that with poorly cut plates are so good now. Everything's so good now. With a poorly cut plate, if you started over here and loaded your switches this way, if there was some like dimensional inaccuracy, you could end up with kind of like a torqued plate. I guess that's not really a thing anymore. Do I do a lot of this stuff because I've been in the hobby for whatever? I'm not going to have a crisis right now over a hobby. Anyway, so then once you've got your distant switches in, you've got your screws installed, you can start popping in switches. I kind of go bottom to top these days. And so what I'm doing is I'm just inserting the plate fork by the switch, and you can hear the clicks. Here, I'll do one slow. So there's like those two high-pitched clicks at the end are the actual snaps on the switch snapping into the plate. That is what you want to happen. And here, let me do one without. Watch it make a liar out of me. Nope, see, so that one's bottomed out. You didn't hear any of those clicks. Let me pull it out again. God, these are tight. Reinsert the fork. Clicks. That's what you want to hear. You can typically leave your plate fork just at like a neighboring switch. Yeah, still get your clicks, which is good, especially for switches like shift here. There's no way to get the plate fork in there because it's surrounded by stabs. So I just leave it right there, and if you really wanted to, you could insert your other plate fork also to get as close as possible to that switch position, just to support it as much as possible. And you still get your clicks. So one end of the plate fork just has one switch, the other end has four. That is useful for one use based switches, as most of them are. Just kind of as you make your way around the edge, you need to use the other end of the plate fork. If you didn't have plate forks, what you'd do is insert your switch to the best of your abilities and then kind of pull the plate up on either side. So like I would have installed the middle arrow first probably, so I could hook my fingers in, pull it up, clip it in, and then it will likely support the plate well enough for the other switches around it. It may not, but that is how you would go about doing that, at least. Let's get... Oh, am I going to lock my plate fork in here? Ooh, I might. Okay, glad I checked that. What I was going to do is insert my plate fork sideways in here and then start cheating it up, but with that screw right there, it would have locked my plate fork into place. So what we're going to do instead is just... Oh, actually, let me show you how I do it with my fingers first. So there you go. That didn't quite clip in. So as you pull up on the plate, you hear the clicks. And there you go. And now, in theory, yeah, the plate is now supported enough that you can free pop in. The edge ones are easy because you can kind of pull up on the plate as you push down on the switch. I also highly recommend, if this is your first keyboard, do this on a hard surface. That way the hot swap sockets are supported by the table. With how much foam is in this keyboard, it'd probably be fine. What can happen in some boards where there's quite the air gap under the PCB is when you go to push the switch in and you miss a little bit, you can actually pop the hot swap socket off the back of the board. And because the solder points on those sockets are so big, it'll often actually rip the trace off the PCB. And then depending on your level of skill, that's somewhere between hard and impossible to fix. I'm a very experienced solderer. Fixing a lifted pad is still really, really annoying. So yeah, just take your time, do it right. If this is your first board, enjoy the process anyway. Take her slow, and you'll be fine. So this one's interesting because the switch goes in sideways. Actually, none of the clips on the switch will interface with the plate, which appears to be fine. So this is one of the ones that said I was going to need to clip the leg off. Though that doesn't appear to be true because that just clicked in. On ISO, what would be here? Oh, it's the enter key. I think you would need to clip one of the legs off. I see what the diagram was saying now. If you were to build this in ISO. And what it means about that is you see how this switch has 5 legs on it, the 2 metallic contacts, the center post, and then these optional 2 side ones. There you go. The 2 plastic ones. You need to clip off one of those just with like a pair of cutters to make it fit in the PCB. Not a big deal. We're going to get our last edges done here. I'm going to do step caps. That is my preference. You're welcome to do whatever you like. And then this switch goes in right side up. There you go. And then for the bulk of the keyboard here, that's where you can use the wide end of the plate fork. What I do is I start at the bottom, get my plate forks in place. Oh, I actually just heard another switch snap in a little bit. There you go. Plate forks for the win. Just like that. Snap in the bottom row switches, scooch them up, snap in the next row, etc., etc., etc. I'm going to time-lapse through that part. Okay, didn't quite prod enough switches. We'll prod the whole bag. Why not? Send it. These have all gone in very smoothly. They fit quite affirmatively. I'm already happy with this switch choice. Gatoron's factory lube on these. Ooh, that went in crunchy. That is why you do this on a solid table. We are all good though. Gatoron's factory lube has gotten incredibly good. I remember when they first started offering that. It was a major innovation at the time, and I haven't lubed switches in I don't know how long, years. At least one full calendar year, actually. Maybe actually literally years. Especially with linears. Factory lube is just so good now. I really don't keep up with tactiles past my friends telling me about what they're using. I think tactiles come factory lube now, for the most part. Could be wrong about that. It is so nice. When I prepped the stabs for this, I also prepped some for my 80 and for my Skillet 60 that NK just released. And I finished setting up all three, or lubing all three sets of stabs. I'm like, man, I hate doing that. I used to not like that, but that is a real chore now. I thought there were 110 switches in this bag, so I underestimated. It's more like 100. Nope, actually maybe it is 110. Alright, whatever. Fine. Okay, am I going to test the PCB before I assemble? We are so close to assembly at this point, I think I am just going to screw it together and then test the PCB before I put keycaps on. I think that's the trade I'll make here, because setting it up to test the PCB, you're like halfway done assembling the board. So we're not gonna worry about it. I'm gonna get my gasket socks back on here. I'm getting pretty jazzed about feeling this. I'm quite touched that Lumen Key approached me about this. For a long time, this is a hobby for me. I don't have any aspiration to be like a full-time YouTuber, as you can see by my release schedule. The whole goal was to like get to the point where brands trust me to review their products, and that has happened. But also this week I did hit enough watch hours, thanks to the short film I mentioned earlier, to apply for YouTube Partner. And mostly my plan there is just to turn off as many ads as I can in the control panel. Because I just want these to be fun. And this is fun. And I've been trusted by a brand to review their product. And it's quite meaningful. Let me grab the chassis. Build the towel back out. You see that little dent in the towel? That is from dropping my mode loop weight on this thing. Very glad I had the towel down. One of many activities where putting a towel down first is probably a good idea. All right, no case foam. We are going to flip it back over, lift up that ZIF connector, use 0 insertion force to insert that ZIF connector. Make sure it's nice and straight. It is. We're gonna place that down, and now we're gonna test it. I'm just gonna like pre-commit to assembly here. Really hope I can figure out how to turn that off. That is irritating. I'm not a big RGB guy. Thankfully, this board isn't like absolutely lousy with RGB. Wow, even without keycaps on or the top case on, this already sounds. Oh wow, Via like harmonized with itself. That was kind of cool. This already sounds really interesting. I'm keen to see. I'm glad it, like, again, not even fully assembled yet. Wonder what those do. sounds good without foam, which is nice. Oh yeah, nice that they included it. I almost felt like guilty about taking it out, but I guess a lot of boards that include foam just include it separately, so I feel less guilty because it's not like already in there. I'm not gonna feel bad about that. I feel like I'm still representing their product accurately. Cool. Let's drop this back on top. Oh, the switches almost kind of match the finish. I didn't mean to do that. Flip her over, grab our hex key, and start screwing it back together. Just like with a CPU cooler, it is best to kind of do a star pattern when you're screwing together big parts like this. So I put in one corner. Now I'm going to put in another corner. That both kind of supports the whole thing because you're lifting it up by two corners. If you just screwed in these ones, it might like cant down and get the little screws misaligned a little bit. So that way it's supported at both edges, and we're applying even pressure to the gaskets in here. Then I'm just gonna pick another corner and then finish the corners. And I'm just gonna follow the same star pattern on the inner screws, just to make sure pressure is nice and even. Closest analog, I think, for most of y'all is probably going to be like putting a CPU cooler on in a gaming PC. You want to go in a cross pattern to make sure you're evenly squishing around the thermal paste. In this case, we want to be evenly squishing those gasket socks. Ta-da! From an assembly standpoint, don't really get much easier than that. Tell you what. That is fairly beginner friendly, and again, if you don't care about taking foam out or anything like that. Oh, I guess you do need to install stabs, so I guess no matter what, you need to take the board apart. But again, they do sell the pre-assembled version. So depending on your level of confidence in yourself, it really doesn't get much easier than that. It's like a 5-step build guide. Everything's very well set up for you. Keycaps already? Wow. Cool. I swear it's faster to build keyboards now. Used to take longer. Okay, so we've got our Yamone 2 base kit. I'm really scared I've said that wrong every time that I've said it. We also have the macro / expansion kit and the twisted key repair kit. Last year, not a lot, a fair number though, of GMK sets that had 1.5U keys. The keycap on top was slightly twisted compared to the stem, or the other way around. One was twisted compared to the other one. And so when those sets ship to you, you get this little like apology kit of untwisted stems. And since this is a 7U board, I need 1.5U supers, which are in here, but they're actually in here because these are the repaired ones. So that was a long walk for a short drink of water. But all that to say, we are cracking, I think, all of these kits open. Yeah, because my second alt, or am I going to use a function key? Yeah, I have some choices to make. I'm going to put the keycaps on for the layout I ultimately want this to be in. Though that may not match what the default mapping is. A little airy, but I also don't have all the keycaps on yet. Keycaps make a pretty big difference in how a keyboard sounds. Got them, so we're not doing that. I think I'm gonna actually, do function there, so I don't need that. I don't need any tiny spaces. I do need F13. I'm just gonna do a surgical strike here. I will put these all into a PBT fans tray at some point. Actually need to restock on those. Macro, second B, shifts. That's everything out of there. Cool. On to the base kit. Installing keycaps, about as easy as it gets. There's a cruciform void in the bottom of each keycap. There's a cruciform stem on MX keycaps. You line it up, you push it on, you installed a keycap. I'm going to time lapse through this for you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see how we feel about the white accent keys with the retro white. Oh dang, that is super close. Just a little bit lighter, but I actually think I like that a lot. Yeah, you know, sitting back looking at it, I think I dig that. I may buy the novelties set for this, which I didn't during the group buy. The black accents look very cool. I saw someone else's build using this set, but I think actually with the retro white, that's pretty smoking. And we actually won't be using the escape because we have the Hibby Artisan. This is an aluminum keycap with white enamel fill on the bacon strip. Oh, and that one fits on the stem real nice. Not always the case with metal artisans. Love that. Alrighty. Put that away. There we are, gang. The Lumen Key 80 in retro E-white with Yamone R2 on it. I like that a lot. I think that's a very handsome look. The little copper bit with the red. I think that turned out pretty nice. Copper on the bottom too. From all the viewable angles, it is an apparently seamless board. Obviously there is a seam, but like from the sides, you're not immediately made aware of that. Nice chamfer all the way around the top. That's matched in the key well as well. Fairly typical design, thinner bezels on the sides, taller bezels on the top and bottom. I think that has turned out to be a very nice little package here. I think this sounds great. I really like that kind of. It's clacky, but there is a sort of deepness to it that I'm sure this mic is not picking it up. There'll be a full sound test suite at the end as usual. That one looks kind of tilted. Is that just me? That might just be me. No, that is a little tilted. Why are you tilted? Why are you tilted? Is my stem bent in this keycap? It does not appear to be. Oh! Wasn't clipped all the way in. Still looks a little tilted, but better. Not worth worrying about right this moment. Oh no, never mind. I was tricking myself that time. It is better now. Sorry, so I was saying, clacky with like a little bit of depth that I'm sure this mic is not picking up. There'll be a full sound test suite. I do think this will be a really interesting comparison for PE foam or not. I may also do case foam and not, since I'm going to need to open this to do the PE foam as well anyway. I may include that, I may not. We'll see, number one, if I remember. Number two, if after using this for a bit, I think that's still worthwhile, because I definitely do hear, especially in the mods, some openness in the case, like a certain airiness to it. And the PE foam may stop sort of that resonance from getting into the case at all and sort of either absorb it or reflect it back up. Generally, PE foam has the effect of like dampening and deepening a board, which is why I think it will be noticeable here, because this is, again, there's a lot of high frequency content. But it plus the case foam could be interesting as well. I'm worried it's going to sound really foamy at that point and stop sounding like a metal keyboard and start sounding like one of those just packed full of foam keyboards you see in like those ASMR videos. Not my preference. Fine if that's your preference. This board comes with tons of foam. Build it. But I think this will be interesting sound tests. I'm quite impressed by the E finish. I mentioned earlier it's kind of hard to tell through the plastic. I think this is quite good. I've got potato junk from the GMK trays. The finish is really, really good. The finish on the wood copper weight is very consistent as well. The overall heft of the board is quite nice. It's like, it's clearly not just an aluminum board, but it's also not like wrist-breakingly heavy as some boards are. And I have some boards that are, I would describe like wrist-breakingly heavy. It is a nice thing. But I feel like for, again, a package that costs... stalling for time because of too many tabs open. If you were to get it with keycaps, $273 comes with keycaps and linear switches. Yeah, I'd say this is a $300 keyboard with keycaps and switches. I think without them, $200 is pretty fair. Me putting a GMK set on here and a fairly premium switch, my builds almost certainly costs more than $300. Has to. Probably closer to 400 with GMK keycaps. But the fact that like the keycaps you would get with this, let me just make sure I read that right, that those keycaps are double shot. I think I saw that earlier. Yeah, PBT double shot keycaps in Wobber 9009 colorways, which are like fairly classic colorways. Now we're done looking at details for the moment. I talk with my hands a lot. For $273 for a Gateron nylon housing linear lubed switch, double shot PBT keycaps, and this board that is tri-mode. The finish is nice. It's got some premium material in it. I think that's a winner. I'll need to obviously use it for a bit here, break in the stabs before I record the sound tests. So it's as representative as possible of all those sounds. If I have changed my mind about anything, I'll include a card between now and the sound test explaining if I ran into any issues or anything. But sitting here right now with it built, hot and fresh, I'm digging it. I think this is a pretty cool board. And again, they have a 75 and a 65 as well that you can look at. I did notice, I said at the top of the video, the E-White seemed to be out of stock. If you select the pre-built options, that is not the case. It is actually still in stock in the E-White. So it seems to depend what config you pick, what isn't in stock. There's this deep red color that I almost picked. That's also still in stock. They've got some really nice finishes, including some ano, some ano, some E-coat. There we go. I forgot the word. Interestingly, too, in the pre-built configurations, there are wired-only ones, which is interesting, and they're $7 cheaper than the wireless ones. So that's interesting, too. You got quite a few options here. So there you go. Link will be where you can find it for the website. Again, sponsored video. I get to keep this keyboard after the fact. I will update y'all if there's anything before the sound tests. Sound tests, I think, are just going to be foam configuration comparisons. That doesn't necessarily help anyone make a buying decision, but it will show you kind of what sorts of sounds this keyboard is capable of with just the lining foam in the bottom, case foam, PE foam, and then PE foam and case foam. I think will be the ones I do. Really don't like plate foam. I'm going to skip that. That's just personal taste on my part. Also, I feel like with a PC plate, you really don't need plate foam, unless you're going for that really foamy, marbly sound, in which case, you don't need to be watching this. You already know what you like, so that's up to you. Are these 65 and 75 in stock? I actually didn't even check. They offered me a 65 at first. The 75 does seem to be completely out of stock. Quite a handsome board, though. I do like the way they did the exploded arrow cluster on that, so that must have been a previous or maybe yet to ship offering. I suppose it's possible this one was also a group buy that is working on it. Oh, calligraphy on the weight, though. So close, Lumen Key. No calligraphy on weights. Stop it. Stop doing that. The 65, however, there are a number of configurations still in stock. Is it also tri-mode? Also tri-mode. Okay, cool. So that seems to be their thing. They're and that was another thing that interested me about doing this video is I had not yet tested one of these boards coming out of China. QWERTY keys, Owl Lab, this sort of these not budget boards, but certainly sub-premium. This isn't a Mode Designs board. I'll compare because sponsor to sponsor feels fair. I'm kind of in the same boat with both. I don't want to compare them to a non-affiliate. This isn't a Mode board. This is not a Mode quality board, but it also costs half as much as a Mode board, depending how you configure it. And I think it is worth that. I think if you're getting into the hobby and you like the little triangle motif, you want a nice E-coat, having wireless is important to you, something like that, or the ability to get a pre-built one, again, with some fairly nice Gateron switches and some double-shot keycaps. Yeah, totally. I at this moment, again, would not hesitate recommending it to a friend. If that changes, I'll leave an update card. And so I stopped repeating the ending. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Lumen Keys for sponsoring the build. Very excited to have this board. Very touched that you reached out to me. That has been my goal with this channel, is to have brands trust me to give a fair look at their product, and that is what is starting to happen. So really appreciate that. If you liked the video, please do. If you have a question or a comment, please leave it. I read all of them. I reply to most of them. And yeah, see you in the next one.